Awesome. Listen, anything. I'm here.
Sweet. So going back from Brooklyn to the big screen, growing up as one of seven kids, how did your early experiences shape your work ethic and passion for storytelling?
Well, to be honest, I always wanted to be an actor. I uh, I grew up watching Combat and Rawhide and Bonanza. And back in the day, we used to play. You go outside with cap guns and things like that. And we had a group of people. We grew up in a very poor neighborhood, so very few of us had actual guns. I used to pick up a branch that would, resemble a gun. So I guess your creative comes out
Did you
when
have pine
you're
cones
young.
as grenades?
Of course. Of course. We throw rocks as grenades too.
Well, I
Yeah.
couldn't do that.
Sometimes hit a little too close, real injuries. But so we got into things like that. We would play all kinds of stuff. Everything was physical back then. Everything was, you thought about it, you played it. Um, and like I said, we didn't have money, so it was very, very raw, and your own mind had to create that you were in a uniform and you had a real gun and you actually shot somebody, and there were times you'd go, "Hey, I shot you." "No, you missed." "No, you didn't." Things like that. So you get into it. And then what happened was, I was very much into sports back then, but I never grew. I'm a very short person, so that went out the window. And acting, I didn't think I was gonna, I always wanted to try, but I didn't think I would get there. So I wanted to have a big family like my family was. I saw how tight we were as a family. I saw how we came together. And I decided to go a different route, take different jobs on. And when I retired, it was time to find a new path.
Awesome. From Wall Street to horror films, what made you take the leap from finance to filmmaking? How has your background in finance influenced your approach to indie film production?
Um, Again, another, things just happen for a reason, I guess, and thankfully I'm on the right end of it a lot of the times. Um, I had gotten sick in 2008, and I didn't want to leave my house. I felt crappy. I didn't feel good about myself. I was having a lot of troubles. A lot of things went on in my life that just, I guess I let my guard down, and it got to me. And I owe a lot to my doctor, Dr. Hariso. And he got me out of it, and he was like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't want to do anything." And I was just existing at that point. And he said, "What did you used to like to do?" And things like that. I said, "Used to like to do sports. I don't want to do it no more." He goes, "What else?" I said, I always wanted to be an actor." He goes, "So why don't you do that?" I said, "I don't want to get in front of a camera. I'm not happy with myself." And he said, "Well, why don't you write, do something?" So I started to write after he got me back on track, mentally. um, I started to write. I was writing a war movie, and a friend of mine came over, John DeMeo, and he said, "I'm actually doing a war movie." And he gave me a couple of pages. He goes, "Could you fix this up for me?" And I started writing about it. And to backtrack a little bit, one of my biggest disappointments in my life was I never served in the military. So it was always something that I always wanted to do. Matter of fact, when I retired, I tried to join every military uh, branch, and they turned me down. Each one,
What
boom,
was the
boom. I
reason?
was too old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I actually called the Marines back, and I said, "Listen, all you got to do is drop me off. If I get back to the helicopter when you come to pick us up, great. If not, no big deal." He goes, "This conversation's over." He hung up. But so that was a disappointment in my life. I've gotten past it. I try to help the veterans wherever I can now. When I go to cons, if I sign autographs, everything I make, I give to New Jersey Veterans Network. So I help in that way. But getting back to it, I was writing, and my friend came over and he gave me like 5 pages of script, and I said, "Nah, this has got to. I'll help you. I'll build it out." He goes, "I want to do a short." So I was working with that, and as I was doing it, he kept asking me to do it with him, and I said, "I want to do a movie." And I was stuck in my head that I wanted to do a movie, and I started getting into it, and then I started interviewing veterans with PTSD, and I started really thinking, "Wow, these people need to have a voice." And at the time, I think it was like 13 or 14 veterans a day were taking their own lives. And
Now it's up to what, 22?
yeah, I went up to 22. I actually did a little short for someone that says 22 a day, no way. Um, but while I was writing it, I was meeting all these people, and I decided I wanted to show what I was hearing, plus the things that were going on in my life that actually, I had some issues with a family member that I think actually, gave my brain a fart. And and so I was using both of those, what went on in my life and what was going on in their lives. And I was saying, like it's not only the person that's going through it, it's everyone around them. And Joe's War is about it's actually me and my son talking often. And whatever I filled in with the veterans that I was talking to, it's about that. It's about what's going on and what it's doing to everyone around you. And that's what I drew off. And that was the first time I did anything in film. And it could have been better, but I'm very proud of it. I mean, it was picked up immediately, and it really didn't get the like I said, it was my college. It was something that I just did. Everybody that I know from industry was telling me, "You're crazy. You can't do that. You don't know what you're doing." And
It
I
was a
said, "I'm
great
gonna."
movie with a great cast. Armand Asante, Tom Sizemore, great storyline. I mean, as a veteran myself, seeing stories about PTSD, I thank you for that movie.
Thank you, man. I thank you for serving. You know, I do it every chance I get. I'll do anything I can for the veterans. We were just at the New Jersey Veterans Network. They're starting a podcast. I brought my key technician, Jason Milstein. I incorporate my people like this. Jason, I need a favor. He goes, "What's up?" I said, I want to meet you at the this veterans location. I said they're going to start a podcast. They asked me what microphones, but I said, I know none of that. I said, but I know who does. And he goes, I'm there. So we went down there. We were there yesterday and set him up, told him what he's got to do, told him if he needs anything, just to let me know. We'll get you done. So, like I said, you guys have done everything for us. So anything I could do, I try to do.
Well, thank you very much. Going into your pet project right now, Art the Clown, bringing Art the Clown to life. How did you meet Damien Leon? How did you two connect, and what made you believe in Terrifier as a franchise?
Well, I met Damien on Joe's War.
Okay,
When I was doing the movie, I said, PTSD doesn't have to be from what you see in battle. It could just be what your mind, like I went through PTSD, but I had nothing to do with battles, and it's just what you go through. It's what your mind takes in. So while I was doing it, I said, I need some war scenes. I need some blood, and I turned to my friend and I said, we need somebody that does special effects. And he said, I just did a short with this kid Damien. And I said, all right. I said, let's talk to him. So I spoke to Damien, nice kid. I asked him if he could do it. He goes, yeah, whatever you want. So he came down and we did a couple of things, and I actually played with the blood pumps and everything, and I was having a ball. And I was like, this is cool. This is cool. And he would kept mentioning this clown that he wanted to do a movie on. So he actually talked to my son. My son came to me later and he said, Dad, why don't you talk to this kid? He wants to do this movie. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And at that time, I was about to try and raise money for a film called Paintball that I had written. And while I'm doing it, I said, you know what? I'm going to send out a pitch package. I said, and I called Damien. I said, because I loved him. I met him and I loved him. He's such a great guy. So I called him up and I said, listen, I know you want to do this horror movie. I said, I'm not into horror. I said, my horror is black and white, Dracula, Frankenstein, none of this blood and guts. I said, why don't you give me what you're looking to do? And I'll see if somebody would rather do a horror film. Let them give me the money for the horror film. You can do your horror film. So he sent me what he wanted. It was so small. And I said, that's it? Now I just spent over a couple 100,000 doing Joe's War, and he wants like $40,000 to do this little horror movie. And I said, I tell you what, I give you the money, you teach me special effects, and we'll partner up. We'll do this. And he said, sure. I found out later he thought I was full of shit, but we am I allowed to curse on here?
yes, yes. At
Oh,
this
cool.
point, was it for the Terrifier, the first movie, or for the Ninth Circle, like
No, the Ninth
prequel?
Circle I was no part of.
Okay, okay,
I didn't even know Damien then.
okay.
I met Damien on Joe's War, and
Ok-
he had already done the Ninth Circle. It was a short. He had done a couple of shorts, and they put them together, and that's where it was done. That was Mike Gianelli as Art the Clown.
right.
Matter of fact, before I think it was before we did Terrifier, he was looking for an actor, and I reached out to one of my actors from Joe's War, and he became Frankenstein in Frankenstein versus the Mummy that Damien did. So, I'm always going to look to help people when I can. But when we did Terrifier, me and like I said, everything just fell into place. I had a house in Staten Island that somebody was renting, and just as we were about to start doing the practical effects and everything, they moved out. And my wife goes, "Oh, I got to rent the house in Staten Island." So I said, hold off, don't rent it. I said, "Now we got a studio." And we went right into my house in Staten Island, started building everything. Um, and me and Damien got real close at that point. And when we built it, we were never thinking franchise. We were thinking, let's see what we could do. George, DP George, and Damien were like, "Oh, this is great. We're going to make a lot of money." And I said, "Let's pray we get the money back, and then we'll move from there." I said, it's pretty cool. But I had just experienced Joe's War, where there was no money coming back, and now we're going into a thing that we didn't spend any money on. And even though there's what becomes an iconic figure in the future, who knows? You never know. It's up to the fans. If the fans take to it, it's going to do some things. And so it went out, and it was doing well on its own. And then it went on Netflix, and that's where it jumped. And right before Netflix, I went to a con for the first time with Damien and Dave, and I saw people walking around with Terrifier stuff, homemade Terrifier stuff, shirts and stuff, and signs, Art the Clown. And I'm like, holy shit. And I turned to Damien right there and I said, "We got to go bigger for two." And that's what we did. We went bigger for two and much bigger for three.
I can't wait to see what's in store for four.
He's writing as we speak.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. What is it about Art the Clown that makes him such an effective horror villain?
I think there's so many levels to that, I believe. I believe there's some humor to his mayhem. Uh, B, I believe there's by not speaking, which is brilliant on Damien's part. He doesn't speak. He's not colorful, so he's very different from all the clowns you're used to seeing. Then you have this total chaos, total gore fest, where in your mind's eye, you would never do that in real life, but to see it on the screen, yeah, hell, go for it. Let's see what kind of mayhem you could cause. So it's like it goes from fun to insanely brutal, and then back to fun, insanely brutal. So it's never just one level. It's constantly shifting. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the unique look of the character. I mean, Damien drew a picture of what he wanted for the poster for Terrifier 2 before we casted anyone. And when he cast his leading lady, Lauren Lavera, it was like just what he had pictured. And it's in his mind. I mean, listen, I don't like to keep blowing smoke up his ass, but kid knows what he's doing. He's a young man now. I mean, I call him a kid because he's my son's age. They're the same age. And I look at him as a son, and I mean, he knows what he wants. He's very determined to get what he wants. I mean, on Terrifier 3, we had some battles because this is a big budget now, and we went way over. And I was like, oh my God, we got to rein this thing in. And every time I would walk over to him, I'd see him go like this. And, and that's the only times we had friction. And then when it's all over, you get it together and it works out. And I think that's the beauty of me and Damien together. I think we complement one another in a good way.
Awesome. Overcoming challenges. What were some of the challenges that came out through mostly Terrifier 2? Wasn't that filmed during the pandemic?
Yes, and believe it or not, even though it's a tragedy, it actually helped us in certain areas because it gave us a breather in between shooting because we had shot most of the film, and we had shot that bedroom scene, and Damien was not happy with it, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but we had to take a break, and when we took the break, we went right back because we did all the effects. Me and Damien did all the effects, and we went down to my basement, which is where we did it, and we re remolded everything for the bedroom scene, and we revamped it, and we went back and refilmed it the right way. Added what we needed,
What
and
part wasn't perfect for him?
Oh, it just wasn't playing right. We
Okay.
did some more of it, like he wanted the first of all, I had never done it before, and he goes, "Can you make this thing move? Can you make it talk?" And I was like, I don't know. I've never done this stuff. You're the brains here. But he goes, see if you could do it. So I'm walking around my basement. I found fishing wire, I PVC pipes, and I put all these things together inside the head. I mean, I got pictures of me drilling things into the head to make this thing work. And then when it worked, he's pulling the string, making the mouth move, making the mouth move. And I'm going, hey, stop. I don't know how long that's going to last. He goes, might as well find out now before we shoot. And but he's a perfectionist. And I'm one of the things I say is close is good. And so yeah, I'll be walking around and I'll go like, this is the man. He goes, well, I want to get to, hey, close is good. He goes, no, no, it's not close is good. I go, it's close is good. No, the only person that's going to see that mistake is you. So don't worry about it. But he's a perfectionist, and he's good at his craft.
Were there any scenes from Terrifier that almost didn't get filmed because of budget, logistics, or even sheer brutality?
Never sheer brutality, but budgets. There were things, time constraints. On Terrifier 3, we had time constraints, whereas on Terrifier and Terrifier 2, we didn't. Terrifier, we had limited resources. We had limited time to shoot in certain areas. Terrifier 2, we had. I mean, we filmed everything in my property, so. I built all the sets with George Stuber, DP, and Steve Delasala and Jason Levy. We went and Larry Bolello. We went up into my barn upstate, and we built all those sets. So, like Clown Cafe, to give you a little background on that. Clown Cafe, me and Damien are down in my basement building prosthetics, and he turns to me and he goes, "We got to push the shoot back." I said, "No." He goes, "Phil, we're shooting in 4 days. We don't even have a set." So I looked at him, and the producer in me said, "Fuck that. I ain't pushing it back. That costs money." I looked at him and I said, "Here's what we're going to do. You stay here. You can handle this without me. You don't need me." I said, "I'm grabbing a couple of guys. I'm going upstate. Don't push it back." And he walked upstate 3 days later. He walked in and he goes, "Holy shit, you did it." In 2 days, we built the whole Clown Cafe.
Wow, that was an amazing set for being down in your basement.
Oh no, that was upstate, but
Oh, okay, gotcha.
yeah, that set was upstate, but I left him in the basement working on the prosthetics.
Gotcha. Going unrated, being unrated, you released Terrifier 2 and 3. How did that impact distribution and marketing?
At that point, everybody wanted it. They listen, everybody wants to have a version that's watered down, and Damien and I say no, at least for the initial release. I was adamant, at least for the initial release. I said, but if we could tone it down for later, maybe bring in a bigger audience. And Damien was like, "No, let's just stay with this." And I said, "All right,
Because I think the controversy sells more because like the people getting sick and like throwing up in the European Union. I think the controversy kind of sells the tickets more, at least here.
I think so too. I think listen again, I think he's right. I personally feel like once it's out unrated and it's going great, when you go, you could always build an audience by the R-rated, say. But we've been with our fans, and I'll say it again, without the fans, you got nothing anyway. I've been on both sides of the coin, no fans and tons of fans. And these fans are great. They come, they know what they want. If they like you, they're gonna hit a home run for you. And they did.
It's the highest grossing unrated film of all time, beating out Joker. What did you do differently to take things even further?
I think again, we didn't do anything different. Uh it's a grassroots operation. I mean, like I said, the fans took to it. Overseas took to it. Everybody. It's a thing that people wanted, a new icon. Like one of the things that I left out was when I went to that con in Arizona. Like I said, I don't know much about horror other than black and white horror. And at that time, I know a little bit more now, but I would go like, how long has it been since that guy with the hockey mask was new? How long with the guy with the, how long Halloween? How long this? How long that? How long Freddy Krueger? And they were all 20, 30 years. And I said, that's when I realized we got something here, because people were gravitating to him, and it was new. It was somebody new that they could look at. It's not the same old guy that's been there forever. Even though they're solid, it's different. So now you bring that out, and then you bring with the gore that we brought to the table, and you say, and it's not cheaply done. I mean, we were sitting down there, and he goes, Phil, this is like $1 million worth of effects. And I said, get out of here. I'm old school. I'm thinking, like we're breaking our ass, but still, it's not million. Then when we do Terrifier 3 and we hire companies, like, oh fuck, yeah, it is. So,
Creative freedom in indie filmmaking. What's the biggest advantage of being independent rather than working with the major studios?
well, for Terrifier 3, we turned down a few studios. We didn't want to be dealing with it. Not for any other reason than we wanted total control. And we're going to stick with that. We want total control. We don't want anybody telling us what to do. Um, we went through, I stayed away from unions. I didn't deal with unions. Wouldn't have it. I went out and bought trucks on my own just to, you know, have our own trucks. Didn't want to deal with renting, didn't want to deal with hiring people to just sit at a steering wheel, pay them 1,000 plus a day. And $1,000 is actually $1,500 because you get hit with all these fringes. So you try and cut costs wherever you can and put all that money into production. When you, I've seen studio work, and there's a lot of wasted money. It don't go in production. It goes in making things so comfortable for so many people, which isn't a bad thing, but it gets overly saturated, overdone, too much wasted money.
The role of horror in society. Horror has always reflected cultural fears. Are there any real world themes you consciously weave into your work, such as like the mall scene in Terrifier 3?
Well, these are questions for Damien.
Gotcha.
Damien's the creative genius on this. Um, I just try and get him everything he needs. I'll build things. I'll help him make things. I'll do whatever I can. But he comes, these are questions that were more built for Damien. Um, the mall scene, I think, is, you know, we made sure we did it a little less gory than most of the other kills because there's children involved, and you don't want to go through that. So you want that, wow, you went there, but you don't want that, ah man, he went there. So it was a touchy subject for the both of us. Like, are we going to do this? Well, we got to be careful how we do it. So that I think is the mindset that I know of his. I don't know exactly why he brought that in, other than, we were driving upstate, and I said, Christmas wouldn't be a bad thing, and he ran with that. He was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And I didn't think he was going to do that, but he did it. He goes, because I didn't even realize till later on. He goes, this is done on Christmas because of you. I said, because of me. He goes, yeah, you mentioned it when we were driving upstate. He goes, it's a cool little twist going to Christmas instead of Halloween.
Streaming versus theaters. Horror thrives in theaters, but also dominates in streaming. That's how I first got introduced to Terrifier, was off of, I believe it was Tubi. Where do you see the future of horror distribution heading?
Um, to be honest, I like being in charge of my own destiny. So I'm more of a keep everything, do it yourself. And in today's world, you could get into theaters, you could get into streaming, you could do a lot of things on your own. So I think it's always going to be about the product itself. If you have a strong product and you bring it to an agent or something, and you say, listen, I want to get this on in the theaters. If it's strong and if it's good, there's a good chance you're going to get in, whether you know anybody or not. If you go to a streaming service, if it's good, they're going to want it. If it's bad, they're going to want it for free. You'll make pennies on it. So whatever it is, you got to bring a good product to the forefront. If you bring a good product and people want to see it, it'll do well for you. And it believe it or not, you always need you'll always need media help. You'll always need that. But if your fans like it, if the people like it, word of mouth, especially with today's social media, the word gets out there. It gets
Indeed.
out there in a hurry. And like this, podcasts. When I was growing up, there were no podcasts. You were either on TV or on the radio, and that was it. You didn't have all these shows. Now, I mean, I spend my day in my phone half the time, and I'm like, I got to get rid of this thing. But it's social media all day. It just hits you from every end. So if you got a strong product, people are checking it out. Oh, let me hear. I heard about this Art the Clown thing. I heard about this Terrifier thing, and it just builds and builds and builds, and it keeps going.
Ringing the bell, closing bell at NASDAQ on Halloween 24 must have been very surreal coming from your finance background. What did that moment mean to you?
I almost stepped away from that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know. And Olga Turka, our set design, she turned to me and she was, Phil, that's like full circle for you. Why don't you do it? She goes, you're crazy. So I looked at her and I said, I don't know. And she goes like this. She goes, you got to do it, man. So I said, you know what? Maybe I will. And it was a last minute thing. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go. And I told them I'm going to show up. Um, and I went there and I wore my badge from the floor. And I got there, me and my wife, and they treated us very well. Cineverse brought me up there, and because I wasn't supposed to be there, and Cineverse brought me up there, Eric, and I was very grateful. That was pretty cool.
You mentioned your son quite a bit. Your wife and kids have been hugely supportive. How has your family shaped your journey as a filmmaker?
Well, I mean, all my son's in Joe's War. He plays one of the friends of uh, Joe, and my daughters, my one of my daughters cooked through the whole movie of Joe's War. For Terrifier, my daughters helped me. My daughter Lisa Marie is all over the place in Terrifier 2. Her body parts are all over the place. Matter of fact, in the tank scene where Sienna's leg is trapped, we had to film that on another day, and rather than bring Lauren back, we just had my daughter's foot in there, and we let her be the foot. So she I and I my daughter Lisa Marie was afraid of clowns, and me and Damien used to leave clown body parts all over the house for her to run into. So we desensitized her. Now she critiques what we do. She's like, oh, I would have did that a little different. And I'm like, get out of here. So it's cool. My wife, I mean, for Terrifier 3, I told her I said I didn't like the way it was going with the people that were supposed to fund it. And they were supposed to lend us the money and they started doing this shit. And I said, you know what, screw this. I turned to my wife. This is the kind of woman she is. I said, I think I'm going to risk our retirement. I think I'm just going to back the movie myself. And she said, go ahead. We've been poor before. We could be poor again. And I went with it.
What was your most holy shit moment? What was the moment that you realized Terrifier become a cultural phenomenon? You mentioned people having homemade Art the Clown t-shirts and cons of stuff, but what was the exact moment? It's like, wow, this is actually becoming more than what we expected.
I can't really tell you. I don't know. I think somewhere around Terrifier 2, when we released it, I think the reactions started to get to me because none of that throwing up or anything was planned. I mean, it wasn't us doing this. It wasn't premeditated. It was shit that was really happening. And I was like, really? Because I'm at this point desensitized to this stuff. I mean, not only that, you built it, you know how it works. You're the one feeding the blood through the pumps. You're the one, cutting the silicone. And I'm like, really? And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, holy crap. So I think somewhere along the theatrical run for Terrifier 2, I started saying, this is bigger than I thought it would be. I knew it was good. I just didn't know it was that good.
Looking back, when people reflect on your career, what do you hope they say about your impact on horror and filmmaking?
I'm hoping they say
More
that
so filmmaking rather just horror.
horror, yeah. Anything. I think what I would like to hear most is people say I'm a little disappointed that Phil Falcone never won an Oscar for being in Terrifier in the Terrifier brand. No, I again, I'm grateful for where I am. I think, I look at this as like people are going coming over to me and going like this, "Ah, that's amazing. How do you feel?" And I'm going, I'm happy. I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad for everybody involved because I never look at it as I did anything special. I look at it as we had a group of people that came together and built this thing. Now, like Damien, creator, has this he envisions this, he brings that to the table and he directs it and he edits it and he does this huge part. Then you got George, the DP. He does so many things. You got Jason Milstein, the post production. You got Olga setting the set designs. You have actors and actresses. So I look at, and you got the PAs. The PAs, we call on our PAs to do everything. So I always look at it as I'm just one little piece to this huge jigsaw puzzle. And whether I'm the first piece down or the last piece down, I'm just one little piece. Without all the other pieces, you don't have a finished product. So that's how I look at it. And if that's the way, if I'm remembered for anything, I hope it's that I was a good person and I gave to the community wherever I could.
You're definitely a great person. Like I can see that in the music video, A Work of Art with Ice Nine Kills. You've got this real tough guy persona, telling the band that they're going to swim with the fishes with some concrete boots. But clearly, that's not your personality.
Nope.
How did that come about, the connection between Ice Nine Kills and your production company?
I think Spencer Charnes was a big fan and wanted to get involved. And I actually, we're going to do hopefully we're going to get an album together, a Terrifier 3 soundtrack album. And I reached out to, he's a great kid.
Yeah.
I reached out to him and I said, like I tell my wife, I'm doing all these things just to, my bucket list was filled years ago. So I'm just trying to add to it now. So I reached out to Spencer and I said, we're trying to do this album for 3. He goes, yeah, that's great. I said, we might do it for 2 as well. And he goes, oh, that's awesome. And I said, but you're not in the movie. I said, but I'd like to get a track from you, maybe put it on there as a bonus. He goes, oh, I would love to. I said, there's only one thing. He goes, what? I said, I have to sing on your track. And he goes, what? I said, I got to sing on your track. And then he goes, well, then you have to look like Dean Martin in a suit with the haircut. I said, whatever it takes. I said, that'll be another feather in my cap, singing on an album.
Here's a fun one for you. If Art the Clown could face off against any horror icon, who would you like to see him battle? You've had Jason versus Freddy, but who would you like to see Art the Clown battle?
I, well, I'm a huge Frankenstein fan. I don't know if that fits in this category, but with new horror fans, I would think probably Freddy.
Hmm.
I think you have too similar. Uh, again, that might be too similar. Um, but I would think that would be pretty cool because there'd be a lot of clowning around between both of them, and it would almost be a comedy, a brutal comedy. But you got 2 characters that are pretty similar. One's very verbal, and one's very expressionistic, if that's even a word.
Going back to your work with military veterans and PTSD, do you have any other projects coming up, any other films dealing with PTSD and military veterans?
I do have a project that I'm trying to get going before Terrifier 4, because it's written, it's ready, and it does have to do with the military somewhat. It's not a military movie, but it does touch on certain things military wise with issues that um, could be construed as something that needs to be brought out into the world a little more. Um, and I would love to have some, like I said, I deal with the New Jersey Veterans Network, and I've come very close with Doc Shup, and I want to incorporate some of the veterans there into the fold. They're trying to get involved in little movies and stuff like that. So there'll be a lot of scenes where there's maybe not military, but it's called paintball. So there's a scene with paintball. I would love to have them all running around and, getting on screen and, giving them that opportunity that they don't have to be actors, but they could still look pretty cool on the set.
You ever done paintball? That hurts.
I've done paintball. I enjoyed it, but my knees are gone, so that won't happen no more. I'd be a standing target. When I walk out of there, I'd look like a rainbow.
Speaking to military veterans and those with PTSD, what words of hope and encouragement would you give them?
I would say make sure you have someone to talk to, someone to lean on. Because sometimes all it takes is an ear or a shoulder. When I did Joe's War, I didn't even go on my red carpet. I didn't go in and watch the film in California. I had over 150 veterans that I sat with. I was told at one point that the veterans weren't allowed on the red carpet. And I walked over to the person handling the red carpet and I said, these people are more important than any actor that tries to come to this point. You make them go. They could stand with whoever they want. They could talk to whoever they want. There are people out there that got your back. You had our back. You had our front. You had our left. You had our right. I'll do anything I can to help them. Just know that it's never an impossible thing to come back from. So if somebody has, if you know somebody, if you don't know somebody, find somebody, have an ear, have a shoulder, talk to people if you're going through it. The best thing for you, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor, is to talk. If you talk, someone will listen and someone can help.
Indeed, thank you. And final words wrapping up to your Terrifier fans. If you could say one thing to Terrifier fans, what would it be?
Oh, thank you. I hope we never let you down. You guys have never let us down. Um, we're going to stay true to us. We're going to do what we can to bring you the best that we could deliver. Hopefully, we never falter from moving forward and doing better.
And lastly, how can people stay in touch and connect with Phil Falcone and stay in touch with the works that you're doing?
This is where I get in trouble because I'm terrible with media. So I'm on Facebook as Philip Falcone. I'm on Instagram. I don't know how. I think I'm Phil Falcone. I don't know, but I'm on Instagram somehow. I'm on X. I think that's Twitter. My
Formerly
friend
known as Twitter,
Steve,
yeah.
yeah, my friend Steve, who made my website. I think the website is it's philfalcone.com.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And it's pretty cool. I looked at it and I said, "Oh, I said, that's really me." I said, "Oh, he made me sound good." So it's pretty cool. And I love it because my family means everything to me. And he took my bio and ran with it. So I'm very happy about that. That to me is insane. I think I've met so many people since doing this, and I've had a lot of people in my life, but this has been an incredible ride. You get to talk to so many people. When I go to cons, I don't go to many cons. When I go to cons, I talk to so many people, and it's so cool. It's fulfilling. So, it's amazing. I'm having a ball.
Yeah, you got a great cast, great crew. I met Elliot Fulham at a con last year at Silver Screen Con. Great guy. The guys behind the work of art, the Ice Nine Kills. Great bunch of people, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what you have in store for us next.
So am I.
Well, Phil, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and it's been an honor.
It's been my honor. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.